This is our DEI panel discussion for the month of August, National Black Business Month. We're really excited to host today. I'm really passionate about this topic, being an entrepreneur myself, but also the daughter of a really prominent entrepreneur who is a Black woman immigrant. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. So we have three amazing panelists from across the country, and we're going to have them introduce themselves just here in a moment. So as you can see, I'm going to just say their names and welcome them, and then they're going to share and give them a quick intro. So Sandro, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandro Mark Charles. I'm the owner of Gladiator Excellence. I specialize in working with restaurant owners to help them increase their profit margins using a series of solutions and strategies. And I'm happy to be here.
We are very happy to have you, Sandro. Sandro and I, fun fact, we met in Miami at our U.S. National Conference, and he's fantastic. So we're really happy to have him here. I knew that we manifested this happening. It just happened a lot sooner. The next young, powerful woman, Sammy Williams. Samantha Williams is based in Connecticut, so that is closer to me geographically, and she's phenomenal. Got connected with her about 1.5 years ago, and she's just been climbing, so I'd love to hear more about her as well. So please, Sammy, would you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me, Claudia. I am Samantha Williams, President and CEO of 628 Digital Design. We are a full-service digital content design and marketing agency. Full service means I like to tell you to fire yourself and hire us. Get out of Canva, stop building your own website, go work in your space of genius. Call 628 Digital Design.
I love it. I love it. So thank you so much, Sammy. And last but not least, we have Reggie George out in California in one of our newest corporate-owned regions. So Reggie, if you wouldn't mind, just last week I spoke to you, you were in Hawaii, or maybe a couple of weeks ago. And so it looks like you are out of Hawaii, but it looks like you're still having fun. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Still have the sun. Yes, I am Reginald George. Reggie George is fine. I am the owner, founder of Greenlight Energy. We are a residential and commercial solar sales company. We educate and empower property owners to make long-lasting decisions that help them reduce their carbon footprint and also help reduce their overhead.
I love it. Thank you so much. So make sure that you are following these folks. Find them on LinkedIn. There's their contact information. They're going to be on afterwards for questions. Again, if you're here live and you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. All right, so we're going to jump to the opening of this conversation. And definitely want to know what inspired you to start your own business. So I imagine, everyone doesn't have to answer the questions, but I imagine I want to hear from all of you on this for sure. So Reggie, you're unmuted, so I'm going to ask you first. Yes. Definitely. What inspired you?
Certainly. Honestly, it was the frustration of not being able to make my own decisions. Having been in an industry where you don't see very many people that look like myself in upper level management, looking to work in our neighborhoods with our people, most solar companies target affluent areas for larger commissions. The reality is solar is something that's needed by everyone. And in truth, lower income and areas where you have working class could use solar even more. So for me, not being able to implement what I wanted to implement, target areas that I wanted to target was extremely frustrating. And I decided to take that leap.
I love a couple of things that you said, because I find that a lot of people do think of things like solar and green initiatives as a more prominent, more not for our community type of business and industry. And we have to be just as educated, right, in our communities. So I'm really happy that you shared that for sure. And the other thing, what my mother always says is about not being seen at work, or not, tired of having to prove yourself and not getting the things that you want. So you have to take it in your own hands and do it yourself. So definitely understand that. And I don't know if those sentiments ring true with either of our other guests. So Sandra, I'm going to go to you and then jump into Sammy.
Thank you, Claudia. By the way, like you, I think we may have chatted about this just briefly. Is your family from, is it Jamaica? Where was your family from?
Jamaica and Panama. But I got
Panama.
both. I got all the worlds. Yeah.
Wow, you have all the things. So I'm also the child of immigrants. My parents are from Haiti, and so when they came here, I wasn't born yet, and as they were raising me, they kind of plugged me into the same system that most people here, which is you go work for a company, you work hard, you do all the things, and you work more than they expect you to, and eventually they'll reward you. And that was my expectation. But I remember, I don't think I was even out of high school when my father, who had worked for the same company for 14 years, was laid off. And I remember saying, "But Papa, I don't understand." I said, "You work for them. You obviously did a good job. Why is it, how can they," like, I was confused because I thought the whole going to work for someone and making money and being successful, I thought that was a given. That's how it is. You do this, you get that. I didn't know that someone else has your destiny in their hands. And I believe at that age, I started thinking, okay, how else can I make this work? Because that left me with a feeling of insecurity. And so seeing that happen to my father years and years ago, it put a seed in me that I want to control my own destiny. Not that running your own business is easy, and I think everybody here would agree with that. But there's something about controlling your own destiny. You're willing to work a little longer and a little harder, some blood, sweat, and tears, but at least you know you're doing it yourself. And that's really what prompted me to start my own business.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think it's definitely the generational thing, kind of seeing the struggles of those both prior to us and what they had to go through. So I love that was the thing that catapulted your career, your entrepreneurial path. Sammy.
So I always say I was doing the corporate side hustle shuffle for a long time. So many of us have multiple streams of income, trying to find ways to make ends meet. And I did that for a very long time until, similar to Sandro's dad, I got kicked out of corporate, right? I was managing both simultaneously and I was okay with that. And then when that happened, once I got kicked out, I just said, you know what, I'll just keep pursuing it full time. And then similar to what Reggie says also, before I got laid off, I was already coming to a realization that this job thing wasn't for me. Corporate, it just didn't align, right? I have people who come to me now and they're asking me to work for them. Sammy, come join my company. And I'm like, you know, all the companies I run already, and I'm not made to be an employee. It's just not in what I do. I don't want to be managed. I don't want to say I can't be managed, but that's just not what I'm looking for. And so I just continue running 628 and my other businesses full time.
First time on Zoom. I couldn't unmute. Yes, I agree. And I think I was not also built for the standard 9 to 5, I work like 60, 70 hours, right? Just on my own, the drive. Like Sandra said, I am part Jamaican, so definitely work hard. And multiple streams of income is just kind of in my blood, right? But I agree. I think sometimes too, but I'm curious, right? We'll get into some of the obstacles potentially, but I think as a Black woman, always trying to toe the line of being in line and doing the things that we're supposed to do, and then also getting worried of being coined like angry or difficult and being misunderstood constantly. That for me is definitely there. So I don't know if you agree with that.
That is true for me also. I just posted on social media earlier last week about being authentic. I think it's so important to be authentic. And Claudia, you know me, I'm as authentic as it gets, right? I'm a straight shooter. I'm gonna tell you what it is. And I do have people around me saying, Sammy, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say it like that. You shouldn't be like that. And in the last week or two, I just received so many opportunities, including this opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. I received so many opportunities because of who I am and how I show up, right? Claudia knows me. She could have been like, I don't know. But she welcomed me here to the platform. And that's one of many opportunities in the last few weeks just because of who I am. So that's one thing I would say is, as Black women, it is so important for you to remain true to you, to maintain your integrity and your character, and just show up, right? People are going to label you in all kinds of different ways, but if you show up authentically, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree. And that makes it easier to not have to worry about those things when you're working for yourself, right? For sure. So the next question I want to jump into is certainly, so like I said, we skipped a question. I think it was, is that the next question? Yes, there it goes. So what obstacles, so Sammy kind of talked to one now. I would love to hear from Reggie and Sandra. Like, what obstacles did you encounter getting your business off the ground? And then, so I'll start with Sandra and then we'll go to Reggie, then Sammy.
Claudia, in short, the biggest obstacle that I encountered was I didn't know nothing. Like, I didn't know anything. I just knew I wanted to start a business, and it was education. The biggest obstacle truly was me. My upbringing was slightly different than a lot of Black people in this country, because, and you know a little bit about this, my parents being from somewhere else, they didn't understand the struggles here. And I was raised very much oblivious to a lot of it. So sometimes I was getting struggles and I didn't know why they were there. I learned later on, oh, that could be why that is. So I just went forward. But I would say the biggest obstacle I reached was myself. And so the education was huge for me, reading books, attending webinars and seminars and all the things just to educate myself, because I was not raised to be an entrepreneur. And I think most of us weren't. If you had entrepreneur parents, it's a little different, but I didn't know anything about running a business. I'm still learning, by the way. I'll never stop learning, but I would say I was my biggest obstacle.
Yeah, no, yeah, just not understanding, like having the desire to want to start something. And then it's like, A, if you don't know what it is, but you know that you want to work for yourself. And then B, if you do, and it's like you have the passion for the craft, but it's not, you don't know the business stuff because you didn't grow up around it. And so many people have that, right? So Reggie, I'd love to hear from you.
You just hit the nail right on the head. Having come from family here, but being raised by a single mother, not having anyone in my family that owned their own business, what are you to emulate? Where do you get the knowledge and the background? And I, even in my bio that I sent you, I am the self-proclaimed late bloomer to entrepreneurship. I started at 45. I probably, looking back, I could have done it probably 10 years prior, but there's that fear of, do I do this? How do I do this? And the truth is, the biggest obstacle was not knowing anything. I blindly jumped into this 3 years ago, and wish I would have had the courage, know-how, guidance to have done it 10 to 15 years prior, because I would be while I'm in a great position, it's attainable and it's achievable. You just need to see people doing it like you. And I didn't have to, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I think, and I think this is a lot of the case with so many, or with just anyone that's aspirational, but is scared to take the leap, right? I think the difference between us and like maybe not a Jeff Bezos or a Bill Gates or something, but I think the difference is they just keep trying. It's like not a fear of failure. But then also like not having, like we have this like added layer of, I don't want to say struggle, but there is something that can prevent us from moving a bit further. And I think that, like not even having the capital. So many friends of mine that are entrepreneurs were like, oh, my parents just gave me money or they just handed me the business. And you don't have that all the time. You have to build something. And my mom in the world of entrepreneurship, she's always been entrepreneurial. She's a mental health clinician, but then she has built sort of this empire around senior mental health and care and telehealth services. But it took some time, and she didn't start till I think in her 50s. So it's the same thing of like trying to assimilate and adapt into corporate culture, and then eventually deciding, maybe now I'm ready. So that's a good point. Sammy, I'd love to hear from you.
I was listening to what you guys were saying, and I'm like, yeah, but I didn't see lack of knowledge as a true barrier, because I jumped in. When I started my business, I was at every PTAC, is now the Apex Accelerators, every SBA training. I was at the SBDC. I was just absorbing everything. But one of the challenges I faced was navigating majority white networking groups. And I started my business in 2015. And I would go to these networking groups, and I would promote my business, I would give them my business card, and some of them would just hand it right back to me and say, no, you know what, I don't even want to take it. I've been to networking groups at a chamber event, a breakfast, like a 10-seater table, where no one talked to me. The people here talk to the people over on this side, the people on this side talk to people on this side, and no one talked to me, right? And so trying to figure out how to navigate those spaces and be successful, because that's all time spent, that's energy, and sometimes you pay for those networking events. But it inspired me to create my own thing, right? So Claudia sees my other organization, CMWP. I always say I'm not gonna beg for a seat at anyone's table when I can build my own, right? And so after being ignored in these other spaces, I built my own networking space.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm the same, right? So it's distinct from, it's not a BNI, but I did the same in Boston, to be honest with you, Sammy, because I created events, networking events and opportunities for people so that I could feel comfortable, right? Because I had a similar experience where I would walk into a space and try to talk to people, they kind of do the boxing out, sort of turning their backs. And I dealt with that for a long, long time, right? I've been a BNI member for 20 years. That was one of the things that drew me to BNI, was the fact that it was a little more open and people were actually asking you what you needed and how they could help you, compared to when I'd go to some networking events. So started creating my own networking events so that I could feel like the space was different. And it was, right? Because representation matters. So I love what you're doing down in the New Haven area. It is impressive. And you're bringing a lot of, folks of color to the table to feel like they have a place to network, which is so critical. So I appreciate that. So the next one is really more about the benefits, the next question. And so it says, challenges too, but what do you experience as a Black business owner? We kind of talked about obstacles, getting it started, but more so in this case, I would love to hear about some of the benefits as well, and then any additional challenges that come up. So I don't know who wants to take on this question. Anyone?
When I saw this question, I went, I don't know if I can speak to that. And something just came to me. And I mentioned to you that I did grow up for the most part, very oblivious. So I'm not going to, I know that now that there's racism out there. There's prejudice. There's people out looking in a different way because of the color of your skin. But because I wasn't aware of it for many years, where my parents didn't teach me that, a lot of, especially guys, and maybe hopefully it's not sexist, how you get the talk about how to act, especially with law enforcement, all of that. I didn't get any of that. I didn't know. My parents didn't know to prepare me for this world. So I was oblivious for a lot of it. I learned later, and I've had some experiences in my life where I definitely knew there was a problem. But I want to speak to the benefits I received since I moved to Portland. I moved to Portland. I was in Texas for almost 25 years, New York before that. When I moved to Portland 4 years ago, just prior to the pandemic, I knew what the demographics were here. There are about 3% Black people or less in Portland. I told my wife, I said, we're going to be like 2 raisins in a bowl of milk over there. It's going to be something different. But I have to tell you that I actually feel that as a Black business owner here in Portland, that I almost feel like there's a benefit. And you know what? There is. The people of Portland, in my opinion, this is my experience, actually, I feel like they go out of their way to make sure I know that I'm accepted for who I am. And I don't know if that's unique to just Portland, but that's unique to any place I've ever lived before, including New York, including Texas, including Miami, all the places I lived before. And they almost want to say, hey, we see you. We don't know what it's like to be you, but we see you and we welcome you. We want to be part of your community. And I experienced that here in Portland, which is unusual because of the demographics. I found it odd. It's one of the reasons that we decided to stay here. And I also would like to say I have at least two people from our chapter here. I never felt any different in our chapter. Our chapter reflects the demographics of Portland. About 3% of us are Black. But I never felt any different. No, it's never come up, and I've never, ever felt, even in any other chapters I've visited, it just hasn't been there. So I really appreciate BNI for that. The fact that they have a DEI department speaks to what they're about. So I guess I am experiencing a benefit here.
Fantastic. I love to hear that, Sandro. And yeah, I mean, Portland is a more progressive city, right? I mean, certainly during the height of the racial uprising in 2020 around George Floyd, Portland was very known for folks who were allies coming out, sometimes violently, to speak on behalf of Black voices. And yeah, I mean, so I totally get it. I think that they really do support and encompass folks who are marginalized, Black or minority-owned, women-owned, and or LGBTQ businesses and business owners. And I think that that is something that they put their money where their mouth is, which is great, because not always people do that, right? They might say something, have a sign, and step the other way. So that it is an advantage, right? We have SWAMBA, Small Business and Women. You know, there's different organizations that highlight that. People now are putting Black-owned business, LGBTQ-owned business, women-owned business. They put that on their branding. So I think that that is definitely a benefit in some places, depending where you're at. So that definitely makes a difference, especially for those that are looking to support Black businesses, right? But that's great that, especially in a place that is heavily populated, mostly white, and I see that in other cities too. I think Denver is one of those cities too. I love Denver; it's very white, but they do seem to want to help BIPOC folks as well in the city of Denver. So we're seeing it more and more at other places like Austin. So yeah, so that's really good. Does anyone else have anything to add before I go to the next question? All right. Oh yes, Reggie.
Yeah. I just want to say, Sandra, I'm glad that you have that experience that I think is unique to your area. And I'm truly happy that you get to experience that. It's very different, obviously, in most areas. I'm just going to speak for myself. One of the benefits that I would add is just local community, whether organizations or programs that are allowing small businesses to join or learn entrepreneurial skills. One in particular, Main Street Launch here, they're out of Oakland, California, but they extended out to Stockton, California, hosted a entrepreneurial workshop or cohort that was a half a year type program where you got to learn several things, how to expand, looking at marketing, looking at potential growth, just even down to the basics of rewriting a business plan. But they were in conjunction with the 100 Black Women organization out of Oakland. And I had an actual mentor from that program that actually brought me to BNI. So there are several, organization groups that you can get into that if you're looking for in areas to help Black businesses expand and grow and stay relevant. So.
And while Claudia's fixing the slides, I'll piggyback off of that one. I definitely agree. I was like Sandra, like, well, I don't know what's the benefit, but when you say that, it's true, especially since COVID, a lot of those training opportunities shifted from in-person to virtual, and they had a focus on Black, BIPOC, women-owned businesses. So I've completed several courses with eCornell. I have certificates for women in leadership, women in entrepreneurship. I completed the Morgan Stanley Small Business Academy, the Waste Management, Share the Green. I mean, the CVS Health, like it goes on and on. My CV is long with all of the training courses. But when I think about the benefits, what I do at 628, because we are a Black woman-owned marketing agency, we're one of few in the country. A lot of organizations come to us to help them have a more inclusive language and content to reach their audiences, because they understand those larger, mostly white male-owned agencies can't connect with those inner city and other communities that they're trying to connect with. Another benefit is I get to employ people who look like me. So I say I have a commitment to economic inclusivity. That means I hire Black women creatives. And my team is all over the country, which is another benefit because I've always been virtual since 2015. And so I'm not forced to just work with who's here, who's local. I can pick the creme a la creme Black women, most talented Black women creatives throughout the whole country to work on my team. And then over at CMWP, we also provide those entrepreneurial training. So we are, as an entrepreneurial support organization, we do business workshops, business resources, holistic entrepreneurial wellness, and networking, because those are all things that our communities need. And so we provide curriculum-based programming. We provide programming just for Black moms. We have a focus on moms. And we do an annual entry-level golf tournament that, Claudia, I hope you're coming to this year. Are you going to be out? I think you're out of town. It's Friday, September 5th.
Yeah, no, I'll do it. I'll do it. I have my clubs ready to go.
Yes,
so I will do it.
Yes. So we're providing access for Black and minority women to experience golf, because business is done on a golf course and too many of us are not there. And so when I think about the benefits, it's like, it's so much more than what I receive. It's what I'm able to give to others. Also, givers gain is what I'm also able to give to others.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think this is the first I heard about the golf tournament. So now I'm kind of stuck with this. So we should move on before that's all I talk about. Yes, I absolutely love golf, and I don't get to play it enough. So the next, thank you. So I mean, y'all have some really great points. It sounds like there's been a gamut across the board of experience. So what advice can you offer a Black entrepreneur who is thinking of starting their own business? So if anyone has anything to offer, I would love to hear that. Yes, Rajiv, looks like you want to go.
I can definitely speak to that one. So I think that the first thing that I learned is to be open and willing to accept all help that's out there. I think when I started, and I mentioned that program, that entrepreneur program, there was 10 other groups with me, or other businesses with me. And I found that among us, we tend to have an ego that we know it already. And I'm speaking for the group that was there. I'm not going to speak in general, but we have an idea that we can't break down that wall and accept help. I had no choice. And I had to be open and willing, not only to accept criticism, but to be guided in the right way, and be open to any and all avenues of help that are out there. I think that's my first thing. And then sharing your experiences with the others around you. We have so many, and you don't realize how many Black businesses are around you that are either struggling or just going through the same thing that you are, and being open and willing to have those that communication, open dialogue to talk about the struggles you're having, because you never know who next to you that you're rubbing elbows with could fix some of those things. So just being open, transparent, and willing to accept any and all help that's out there was key for me.
I love that. Yeah, and it's true. Go ahead, Sammy, and then I'll piggyback on that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the research part of it is so important. For a lot of us in our communities, we have hobbies that we think should be a business, and see, right? We all know of some or a few, right? And understanding that not all hobbies are businesses, and not all businesses are for you to start, right? So I think the research part of it is so important. Understanding, building a business plan, trying to understand how viable this business could be, and learning more about your actual business idea, that market, that industry, before you get into it. Because as we all know, it's not a 9-to-5. And if you're running a business that you hate, you should just stop it.
Yeah.
I love go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I want to say first about accepting help. We have to accept help, and it's always, and sometimes we might turn our nose up at like to Reggie's point, like, oh, I know this, I don't need this. And so I think that is so important to see. That's why networking is important, because you never know where the connections are going to lead you. You just don't know what resources or connections that someone might have to make the difference for you. And then Sammy, you just, so sorry, I lost it. You just said, what was the last thing that you just said?
If you're running a business that you hate, you should stop.
Yes, because that makes it work.
Fire yourself.
Right? People often, so full disclosure, I'm on a lake house, right? I'm supposed to be sunbathing and having a lovely time. And I love work. I love what I do, right? I enjoy People are like, oh, you work too much. And yes, there is a balance, but I really do love what I do. When you do not love what you do, it gets very stressful. And so then it makes the grind harder and you feel like you have to do something. So pull back any aspects of the job that you don't like. If it's not getting you to the bigger why and your common goal. Sandra, what were you going to add?
I was going to actually ask Sammy a question. I just want to make sure I got it right. Because I have a hobby of making hair nets for bald men. And what you're saying is that maybe I shouldn't make that into a business. Is that what you're saying? I should do the research first and make sure there's market for that.
I don't know of many other people doing that. I didn't know there was a market.
It's unique, right?
It is.
Okay, maybe you can help me. We'll talk.
Listen, if you like it, you got to do it. I mean, you just don't let anybody shut you down for that. Okay.
Sammy said you have to do the research, and I agree with that because you might love it. You might love it, but loving something and making it a hobby doesn't mean you're going to make money doing it. And so there's two different things.
And it's the same as like the home cooks, right? We know all these people who think they can cook at home and then they think they can go open a restaurant. No, that's a whole other thing, right? But remember,
that's half my clients.
Yes, and also, Sandra, it comes down to if it's making money, right? If there's a market for it and people are paying you for it and you're making money, because the IRS will change your classification from business to hobby after a certain amount of years if you're not profitable. So it's not even if you think it's a business or a hobby, it's what the IRS says.
Wow. So if the IRS says you have a hobby, maybe it's time to just stop it. Just stop it.
Yes.
I like to comment on the question. The first thing I would say is education. And I don't mean education in the traditional sense. I mean, whatever it is you want to do, there is somebody out there who's done something at least similar. We live in an age where information is very accessible and you should educate yourself. Jumping into it is fine, and meaning that you get started, but the education part is super, super important. And I want to speak to specifically Black potential entrepreneurs. Not letting that part of it about being Black holding you back. And what I mean by that is where I grew up in Queens, New York. I grew up in a ghetto. By the way, I didn't know it was a ghetto until many, many years later, but that's what
Queens,
it was.
Sandro.
I'm from Far Rockaway, Sammy. I don't know if you know that.
Southside.
All right.
Queens.
So,
nice.
I met a lot of people and I've talked to a lot of people who have a mindset of I'm being held down. And we've had oppression for years, but to have the mindset of oppression completely changes what you think you can do. And as long as you feel like I'm being held down and because I'm Black, I can't do this, or I'm being held back because of this, I'm not going to say it's not maybe a little more difficult for you. It may be, but you got to put that out of your mind. That I honestly believe that is one of the biggest detriments we have as Black people. Specifically, I'm going to just say, because I'm a Black man, for Black men, I see this mindset a lot. And it saddens me because we're literally holding ourselves back. Listen, we have enough things holding us back. We don't need to add to that. And so if I had to say something, I would say, take that out of your head. I'm not ignoring that there's problems out there, but you need to move it away and just go for it. And then when there's an obstacle, you can go around it. You can go over it. I prefer to just go through it and break it, but so that's what I would say is the biggest thing. If they can shift the thing of, oh, woe is me, here's why I'm dealing with, just do it anyway. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's not to be dismissive of the fact that we are Black, right? Or that, that this is a challenge, or like me being a woman or something else, right? Or someone that is not full able-bodied, right? It's not that that's not there, but it's acknowledging that and still going for what you can do anyway, right? Despite the obstacles and the limitations that it might bring, right? The lack of privilege. So that is important. And then if they say no, they say no. But a lot of times you'd be surprised at who says yes. So that's what I'm taking away from what you said. And that's something that I often have to remind myself. So that's a good point. And Steve Tunuza, of course, for those that know, Steve and I both live in Massachusetts. We are both from New York. I am not from Queens, sadly. I am from the 5th borough of Staten Island. But Steve is from Queens. So he was given some shout out. Yep, it's true. But we're all New York City natives. That's the main point of what I'm making. So speaking of taking care of yourself, I want to know, what do you do for self-care, right? There's things that come at you all the time. There are things that happen, it's just, I would love to know, what is your self-care that you do, whatever that is. It might be something that's obvious and not so obvious, but that it takes care of you. So Sammy, I want to hear from you first.
So I don't consider it self-care anymore, but it took a while for me to get to that point. So I now have a monthly spa membership for massage and facials and things like that. And I see it as like a gym membership or membership to anything else, right? It's part of what you need to keep yourself going. But I also think having a good community around me is my self-care. I have a group of ladies that we can hustle with, laugh with, go shop with, trips, like whatever it is, but we can be our authentic selves again in this group, this safe group of people, because when I'm feeling challenged, I know I can go to them. When they're feeling challenged, they can come to us, and we're not going to yes ma'am each other to death. We're going to give them what they need. Well, I had a conversation yesterday with one of the ladies in my network, and she came to us with a situation and she said, I don't want advice. I'm telling y'all, this is my situation. This is what I'm dealing with. This is my headspace right now. And I don't want advice. I just want to be able to come and talk. So I think being able to provide those spaces and being in those spaces is really good self-care.
Yeah, no, that's so true. The community piece is big, because I think sometimes you just need to be able to vent and get everything out without judgment, without invalidation. And I think that that's so critical. So if you have people like that just let you do that, that can be massive self-care. And of course, I mean, I'm training for a 50K at this point, so the massage is just a necessity at this point. But yeah, and just age, all of that stuff. But definitely massages, meditation, for sure. I don't know if Reggie or Sandra have anything to add for self-care tips on what they do to de-stress. Yeah,
I'll take that if you'd like it.
Yeah, Reggie, go ahead. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Our first conversation, as you know, I was in Hawaii, and I started that morning with a 5:30 a.m. BNI call with Jenny Butts from the beach. So like you, I enjoy what I do, so I was happy to be on that call. But vacationing is probably something that I make sure I take 2 to 3 per year, just to unwind, disconnect when I can. But kind of a reset for me. I need that. It's just how my year to year goes. So vacationing is going to be and then secondly, my hobby, which is not a career, Sammy, which is definitely a hobby, keeps me busy as well. So
I'll add to that. Vacationing, by the way, Reggie, I love that one. For years, I was a independent sales trainer. I traveled around the world training for companies. One of my largest clients one day said, it seems like you've been on the road a lot. When's the last time you took a vacation? And I went, vacation? And I didn't know. I wasn't raised knowing the term vacation. Like, I thought that was something that you see on television. I had no idea. And the first time I took a vacation, I almost didn't come back. So you're right. It's very necessary. As entrepreneurs, we tend to have that attitude of more work. I'm just focused, type A personality. But I've learned the value of pulling back and just unplugging entirely. So for me, vacation is there. Meditation is huge for me. Matter of fact, I took an 8-week course from, I'm just going to plug her, Nandar Matari. She's in BNI, Manhattan 53, worth waking up for. Her name is Nandar Matari. 8-week meditation course, because I tried meditation on my own and I couldn't get it. I just couldn't sit still enough for it to work. And after that, I went from sleeping 3 hours a night to sleeping between 7 and sometimes 8. And that changed my entire life. So now meditation is a daily thing for me. I generally meditate about 20 minutes a day, exercise for sure. And Sammy, for what you said, the community, that's huge for me. I'm an introvert. I'm not someone who goes out and makes friends. My BNI crew, I'm just going to call them my BNI crew, my BNI family, and that includes mostly my chapter, but also other chapters in the area. They're part of my self-care, because I go and hang out with them. I spend time. We do a lot of stuff together. I might just call someone, we go have lunch, and I can be my authentic self. I don't have to be anybody different than who I am. And that's really, really valuable to me. I don't even know other people. I haven't bothered to try to make other friends. My BNI family, we have 58 people in our chapter. So that's enough friends for me. I'm good. I don't really need any more. Okay, maybe one or two more. That's about it. And the last thing I do for self-care is I ride an electric unicycle. I saw it on YouTube. It looked like it was fun. It definitely made it look like it was easy. I learned that it was not. And I also learned that you can bleed a lot and still be conscious. I did not know that before. That's new information for me. But I do. Around Portland, I have an electric unicycle. If you don't want to know what it is, look it up. And then also, I'm sorry, because if you get one, you'll find out about the blood thing. So I do that and I zoom around and I ride, more like 20 miles an hour or something, and it's freeing. And it's really good for self-care. That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, I love all of that. And meditation is huge. Hopefully we can find that resource when we talk about the resources and add that to the link, especially that it is a BNI member. But meditation, but I'll tell you, sleep. There's a page, Instagram page, and a community, Nap Ministry. It's for Black folks to learn how to not be caught up in grind culture, and it is phenomenal. And they talk all about rest and sleep. In the last 10 years or so, I really have, maybe the last 5 years. So while I say I do love to work, I work 50, 60 hours. It's because I enjoy it. I definitely do when I do take my downtime. It matters. And when I turn off at night, I do turn off and I get to indulge in, some shows or a book and just get to chill out, right? But definitely the sleep is key. Otherwise, some people get hangry. I don't know what the equivalent is for not enough sleep, but it's that for me. I will not. And then I get up at 4 or 5 a.m., so I have to go to bed early. Yeah. So yeah, what were you going to say, Sammy?
I was going to say, I absolutely agree with that. There's so many, especially in us and then in entrepreneurial culture, they just feel like you have to be up grinding 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, not sleeping and working on the next thing. I have my do not disturb on my phone set from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I don't get any notifications. And now people are starting to know it. And they're like, oh, your do not disturb is on. I can't reach you. I know. But then I'm also going to bed early, right? Before COVID, I used to be in bed even earlier. COVID had me staying up watching TV and doing all kinds of things. So now it's like 9:30ish. By 10 o'clock, I'm done. I do so much during the day that it's like my brain just shuts down at like 6, 7 o'clock. I can't do another thing. If you want me to be productive, you're going to have to wait till tomorrow.
I love that. The ability to have your phone go silent, the do not disturb. Same here. Mine is 7:30 to 7 a.m. And you cannot reach me.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, the focus model, the setting, the do not disturb, the silent, all of those have been really helpful. Apple has been listening to people so that we don't have to be on all the time. And I think during the lockdowns that happened, right, where we were accessible all the time. I do want to shift. I'm going to ask Sandro to go first because he did talk about this, about his BNI community. So certainly, how do you think BNI has helped your business compared to other types of networking? So some of you have mentioned this, but Sandra, I'd love for you to go first.
Sure. Well, I want to say that before joining BNI, I have been in business networking for about 8 years. When I was living in Texas, I was knowledgeable of BNI. There was some reasons I couldn't join because of time commitment. It just was something I was not able to commit to a certain time every week, but I was knowledgeable. So I was in chambers. I was in a few other networking groups, and it worked, and it's still working. But I think BNI, because they're very purposeful in their the structure, because it's purposeful and because you're tracking everything, something about that makes it work. I mean, you can drive a car that drives 55 miles an hour and is shaky, or you can drive a car that can go 125 miles an hour and it's outstanding. They're both cars. So BNI is that supercar, and it's really tremendously helped my business. I've been in BNI for 2 years now. And the impact to my business is, I would say, at least rivals the 8 years of networking I did before in other types of business networking.
Again, my first time on Zoom, I was talking. Yes, I absolutely love that. And I agree. I think that it is unique. And I love the analogy that you gave. It really is to just beef up your networking at a whole new level. It's not just kind of like a casual, I can pop in and pop out type of situation. It really is. It does take thought. And it forces people too that would normally not talk to you in an event. Like they would have to actually get to know you, right? Because they just don't know what you have in store. Reggie, I'd love to hear from you.
That's an interesting one. So I can't compare it to any other networking types because BNI is my first networking group. I found BNI again through my mentor and joined immediately in a chapter that was launching. So there was 3 of us. So I spent the first year just trying to get the chapter launched. And then I spent this last year as the president. So I could say being in a leadership role, going through that process of launching a chapter, BNI has done tremendous things for me being an introvert until I'm comfortable with just my success. Chapters outside of our region, even having people reach out to me because of my leadership role or hearing about the work that I've done or work with other chapter members, whether it's my personal solar or something BNI related, it's been huge. Can't compare it to anything else, but I will say I am home. I have a family. There is nothing like it. I just feel like I'm supposed to be here.
Love it. That's a great valid point. For sure. I agree. It does become like family. And one of the things I love about BNI and networking in general, if it's done right, is that you would connect with people that you normally wouldn't connect with. And I think though I am an extrovert, I'm probably a little bit more of an ambivert over these last couple of years, but I would say for introverts, it's fantastic, right? Because you do get to build that bond and you don't have any other choice but to get to know, like, and trust people week after week. Sammy, did you want anything to add there?
I was gonna say,
sorry, Reggie.
okay.
And then Reggie can go after Sammy. Go ahead, Sammy.
I was just going to say my chapter meeting actually started at noon when this started. They're right below me right now, waiting for me to get back down there. I'm not leaving, of course, until this is over, but the support that I have, and they all wanted me to be here. I actually asked them if they would be all right with it. And that's why it took me a second to respond to join this group. But I had so much support that they wanted to air it live during the meeting, but I just told them it would be a distraction. But yeah, that's how supportive the group is. And I just wanted to add that in there. So thank you.
Shout out to your group. Go ahead, Sammy.
I want to say shout out to Team Introverts, because people don't believe it, but I'm also an introvert. I can't stand people. I want to be home watching TV with some wine and I'm good. That's my perfect place right there. But yeah, ambivert also, because I have to be an extrovert in order when I need to, right? So to promote the business, to network, that extrovert part comes out, but then I need time to refuel and recharge. But one thing I would say, because I do a lot of networking, even as an introvert, I do a lot of networking. And one way BNI has helped my business is helping me to constantly change and update and perfect my elevator pitch, right? Because I'm not saying the same thing every day. I'm always looking at something different in my business I could promote, in a different way to promote a strategy we're providing. And then, refining that, sharpening the sword. In other groups, you just show up and that's it. And it is also the accountability piece of it, right? Whether you show up or not, that networking group is going to be there. BNI got rules. So if I'm going to commit financially, time bound and all this to the BNI chapter, then I need to be all in, or else they will kick you out. So.
Yeah. No, it's yes, a great core value of accountability. I think that is one of the big things that sets us apart. But it's nice, and one of the pieces of accountability too, I think, in BNI, and you can see with the DEI panel, we want to hold people accountable, is if somebody steps out of line, if someone is not having a positive attitude, and making someone feel uncomfortable. I love that we have that in place to protect our members, and so I would never refer BNI if I didn't feel like we didn't have that. So I would agree as well, for sure. So the final question, like I mentioned before, any resources, we're starting to wrap up. If you have any resources quickly that you want to share, books, podcasts, social media, people that we should be listening for, checking out, that would be helpful for any Black business owners, I would love to have you share them. So if whether you have the link, you could drop them in the chat. We will drop them on the YouTube. But if you want to share any now, that would be great. Anyone that you might follow?
I would tell you that
Sandra?
probably one of the biggest influences in my life and in my business is the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that's for Black business owners or anyone else that can breathe and can read. It's made a huge difference in my life, and I always refer back to it as really what started me. Besides that, I listened to you want to say something, Claudia?
No, sorry.
Okay. Other than that, I know we're wrapping up on time. There was a gentleman on one of Ivan Meisner's podcasts, and his name is Matthew Pollard. He wrote 2 books regarding introverts: The Introvert's Edge, which is more about sales, and The Introvert's Edge to Networking. Those 2 books, I've read probably several hundred books on sales and personal development. Those 2 books, which are recent in the last 2 years that I've been in BNI, have made a massive impact on me personally, but also on my business. Actually, they caused me to shift my business. And Matthew Pollard is actually my coach now. I'm in a coaching program with him. So it's called The Introvert's Edge. If you just look up The Introvert's Edge, you'll see both books, Introvert's Edge and The Introvert's Edge to Networking, massively impactful for anyone.
Yes, Matthew. We love Matthew Pollard here at BNI. He's fantastic, and he spoke a couple of years ago at our conference. So hi, Matthew. Definitely a really great guy and great resources on introverts in particular. Reggie, you wanted to share?
Yeah, I'll just be brutally honest. I don't have the time to read other than dealing with BNI and the stuff that I have to go through. But I will say that one of the things we need to do is be intentional in sharing positive experiences with Black businesses, their services, their products, and actively, out there searching for and recommending, sharing, whether it's social media or through email or just through personal experiences. That's how we truly and effectively, grow. As small Black business owners, we just need to do more to be intentional in that. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, because it's always easy to talk about the struggle, right? It's always easy to talk about the things that aren't working. And to Sandra's earlier point about it can be tough, but my goodness, it's so worth it, right? When we can get past that. So I think sharing about those successes and the wins just as much as what the struggles could be is important as well. Sammy, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I definitely have a resource too that I'd like to add. So go ahead, Sammy.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the books. They're not written by Black people, but they're very beneficial. The 12-Week Year is an amazing book, and also Traction. Those books will help you with time blocking, prioritizing your day, setting goals. They're amazing books. 12-Week Year and Traction.
I love that. And Steve, for the folks that are here live, Steve is putting them in the chat. So you can save the chat with all the info, but definitely save these resources. They're always valuable. I always pick up something new. Good friend of mine, Minda Hartz, she has written about the memo and other books as well, mostly for Black women of color, but they are applicable to many people. And it's about women of color getting a seat at the table was her signature book that she came out with. It's a phenomenal book, and it really does talk about ways to negotiate, ways to kind of know the secrets of being successful. But a lot of it can be applicable to starting your own business as well. She talks about how to deal with things like racial trauma, so specific to BIPOC folks. I just think she's phenomenal. But a lot of these books that have been mentioned in resources are valuable as well. So if anyone has any other questions, we're almost done. I mean, we filled up the whole hour with our guests. So if anyone has any quick questions here, no problem. But if I don't see any in the chat, so Steve, if you want to just jump to their contact information, I definitely want to say, oh, the memo was the book. Someone is asking what book. It was the memo by Minda Hartz. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone so much for being here. Please share this link, the BNI USA YouTube page. This will be updated. Share this with folks. This was amazing. This was better than I had anticipated. We always have really cool guests, but this did not disappoint all of you. So thank you so much, Sandro, Sammy, Reggie. I appreciate you all. We're going to stay connected. And next month, I think we have been possibly the next slide, but next month we're going to talk about, in the spirit of the Jewish holidays. There's several Jewish holidays throughout the year, but September seems to be the time for us New Yorkers. We know them well, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, but there are many Jewish members in our communities and in our chapters. And so we're going to have some folks from across the country talk about their experiences as being Jewish business owners and professionals. So thank you all so much, and we will see you next month.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.